I know I said that I wasn't going to make a part 3 until Dragons Rising finished, but recently I just had a look at what concept art has actually been released or leaked across the last 3 years of Dragons Rising, and I was actually surprised to see there was actually a decent amount. So this video will be a lot shorter compared to parts 1 and 2, but it will hopefully still be as interesting. So let's just get right into Dragons Rising Season 1. So the first image that caught my eye was this image of Max. And who is Max, you may ask? Well, I think it's just meant to be Aaron. So yeah, I much prefer the actual Aaron design, as he just has so much more color than this version. Max kind of seems a bit emo, he's in all black, and the image on the right reminds me a lot of Scott from Prime Empire, probably because he is wearing the same hat as Scott. Anyway, this design isn't really too bad, but yeah, as I said, what we got is a lot better. So LEGO did make the right decision. And before we completely move away from this Max character, there's actually a picture of him with Ryu, who is green, and I can't say for sure, but it looks like he may be brick built as well. And I also just want to say, I am so glad we got this and not this, because that baby Ryu mold is just so freaking cool. However, I will say that this design of Ryu does work very well with this design of Max. And now let's move on to another new character, who is obviously Sora, but you couldn't tell that from this image, could you? I mean, it seems like she is a completely different species entirely. But what I find most interesting about this image is her wolf hat that oddly looks a lot like Akita's. So was Sora originally gonna be like a formling? Because that would have been very cool to see. However, I don't really like the rest of her design. And I also don't like how her color scheme is red, because Kai is of course a red ninja, and if they were also planning on having Wildfire in this season at the time, that would have meant that we would have had 3 red ninjas. But I do have to say, a pink wolf would have been fun to see. So now let's look at some of the villains, and who better start with than Lord Raz, who is a big fig in this concept. So obviously this design, very cool. I mean, him just being a big fig already just naturally makes him more menacing, but he also has a tiger design, which makes sense because I'm pretty sure in the show he has some sort of species of tiger. But him being orange in this picture really sells the idea of him being a tiger, if you kind of know what I mean. This version of him also has a cane, which is quite cool, and his torso design is nice as well, and I do also really like his hammer. And now let's take a look at Raptor, who also looks very different because, well, if you couldn't tell, he's like a wolf or something. So I mean, this design does actually kind of look cool. Like his eye patch and the torso design does look good, and look at his tail. It is kind of weird though how they wanted to make all of the main characters of this season animals. Other Ninjago creators secretly furries. So now let's take a look at a sketch of what Imperium may have originally looked like. And it does look quite different, but it does kind of have the same idea to it. City is still closed off from the rest of the world with the massive wall around it, and then it has a massive city in the middle. And here is a concept image of the crossroads, and it does look a lot different. I mean, firstly, there are some floating houses up at the top, which definitely isn't a thing in the show's crossroads. The actual city also just looks a lot more colorful than the actual crossroads as well. And there also is a waterfall, which I believe isn't in the show, but it does remind me of that workshop set that I think is meant to be the crossroads or something. Also, on the very left there is a building that I think could be one of 2 things. Either Cryptarian Prison, because it kind of looks like the courtyard from the outside, or it could even be the Monastery of Spinjitzu. Alright, so now on to Season 2, and let's first look at this image, because there's just so much to unpack here. So the first thing I want to talk about is Kai's climber suit, because it does look a lot like the final suit design, except the rope isn't printed onto the torso, and it is instead just on top of him. And I don't know if that is just a design choice for this specific concept image, or if they were toying around the idea of the climber suits looking like that. Anyway, behind him, we've got who I presume to be Wildfire, because she's got a red dragon underneath her, which looks like those Rising Dragon Strike sets. So is Wildfire originally gonna like maybe be able to perform Rising Dragon? That would have been interesting. And also behind that, we can see Cole's Elemental Mech, Nia's Elemental Mech as well, which might actually confirm the theory that Lloyd's Elemental Mech was originally meant to be a Nia set. Anyway, we can also see Kai's Climber Mech, which looks exactly like how it does in the show, and Aaron is also riding Ryu at the top as well. And now onto the villain side of things, we can see Lord Raz, and I don't know why he looks so damn weird. It looks like he has got one of the wolf masks on his head, but it probably isn't. He just looks weird. He also just kind of looks like Pilot's Garmadon, a little bit, especially because of that purple belt on him. And next to him is Cinder, and it seems like that tailpiece from the tournament sets may have actually been canon to the show at some point. But anyway, this design actually looks really cool though. And then behind him, we have got Jordana doing some spells, and she definitely gives off like some Scarlet Witch vibes from Multiverse of Madness here. She just looks so crazy. And there is also the Shadow Dojo at the top, and it looks just exactly like the set. And now I also just wanted to show you this image of Jay's Elemental Mech, and I don't think this is meant to be a concept for the actual show, but instead the little set, because I doubt they originally wanted to bring back Jay as a ninja this early on. And Lloyd is also there in his master robes, just like how he does in the actual set. And speaking of mechs, here is an image of Cole's Elemental Mech fused with his golem form. And I just think this is just such a cool idea, because I always thought, why does Cole need an Elemental Mech if he has a golem form? And this just pretty much fixes that like small issue I had with it. Also, it just looks pretty cool. And now we have a concept of Eagle, the Master Dragon, who does actually look quite similar to his show design, except he does look a bit more menacing than he did in the show, which is really saying something. And before we wrap up this video, I just want to quickly play some more images, because I couldn't really find anything interesting to say about them, but I thought they just looked too good to completely ignore them. Alright, so I know that was a bit of a shorter video today, but if you wanted to see some more concept art images from the show, then check out the part 1 and part 2 I made of this series a few months ago, which you can find in this playlist on the screen right now. And yeah, as always, see you later, be Ninja.